That shit is scary. Saudi Arabia basically has bribed so many politicians. Harvard, Oxford, like all of these institutions to get Saudi money. And then you start to understand the culture of silence around Saudi Arabia and why we have this double standard, this egregious double standard in the war on terror and this unholy partnership with this country. Now we're bombing Yemen together. Saudi Arabia and the U.S. Bombing the shit out of Yemen, the poorest country in the entire Arab world. What good is that going to do? How is that going to exacerbate the problems there? Bombing the poorest country in the Middle East.
What is the motivation?
So Saudi Arabia doesn't want the Houthi rebels because they threaten Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia like backed a coup and supported a puppet regime in Yemen a while back. And Yemen is just kind of a thorn in Saudi Arabia's side. What do we get out of bombing Yemen? Bribery, political bribery and hegemony and domination, regional influence. And plus Saudi Arabia wants us to. But when you look at the coalition that's actually bombing Yemen, it's like brutal, oppressive monarchies and like genocidal dictators, like Sudan's dictator. And then you have like, I think Egypt, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia and a couple other countries. It's like, wow, great job. Great job. Why is the U.S. supporting bombing Yemen? And on a side note, the U.S. has been bombing Yemen with drones for years anyway. And then you keep hearing on the news that Iran is backing the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and that's why we need to go in and destroy them. But I talked to this guy who's like an expert, and he's Saudi, and he runs this institute. Everyone check out the podcast on Media Roots. It's really mind-blowing shit, because he just breaks down really what is happening on the ground, and he says, look, Iran is not backing the Houthis any more than Saudi Arabia is backing ISIS. Like, all of these things have influence, and yeah, the money's filtered down, but it's such a double standard. If we're going to say Iran's backing the Houthi rebels, then we need to say that ISIS is funded by Saudi Arabia, and so is Al-Qaeda, because for a large part it is. It is.
That double standard in Saudi Arabia is bizarre. It's bizarre and creepy.
It's unbelievably insane. Saudi Arabia is orthodox, like they are the worst interpretation of Islam that exists. It's Wahhabism. It's the most orthodox, oppressive, bastardized version of Islam. And we look at them and say, like, this is the only good Arab state? Like, that is fucked. Because not only are you telling the rest of the world that that version of Islam is somehow good, but you're also making it seem like... yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. You should see what kind of rights women has in the country. They can't exercise. They can't exercise. They can't play sports.
Why do they want fat chicks? Do they like
you wouldn't be able to tell
veal?
because they're covered in.
They're not allowed to exercise?
Yeah, that's what this guy was telling me. And,
is that because they're not allowed to fight back? Like, what is that?
Well, first of all, they're property. So women can't do anything without a male master or like approval of a male. So they can't go to school. They can't go to work. They can't drive. They can't do a lot of things without having like a male permitting.
How many
them to
people
do
live
so.
over there?
I don't know. They also do like public beheadings in the middle of freeways. They'll do public floggings of someone who simply criticizes the king online. They'll behead women for, adultery, sorcery. This is the shit that we're talking. Sorcery.
Some chicks can cast a spell, though. You gotta be careful. Don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There might be a little sorcery going on that you got to put a stop to. Can't drive, can't exercise. Fuck. So and you can't escape either.
No. Oh, and King Abdullah, when he died, everyone was saying he was this great reformer. The Pentagon even did an essay contest honoring King Abdullah, giving out prizes for people. Like, that's how insanely twisted this whole scenario is. Meanwhile, of course, the 28 Pages movement that shows that Saudi Arabia was involved in 9/11, we're actively carrying up that. Bandar Bush, which was a Saudi in the Saudi government, and they actually called him a Bush because he was so close with the Bush administration. And Senator Bob Graham has come out and said, why did Bandar Bush, why are we protecting Saudis who were involved in the 9/11 attacks? I mean, straight up. Everyone ask yourself that. If you can give me a good answer, that would be great. If it's not about political bribery, what the fuck is it about? If it's not about paying off these politicians with tens of millions of dollars, I don't know.
What else could it be about? If you really stop and think about it. I mean, what else could it be about except having an ally, in quotes, in the Middle East? What other?
But it's the worst ally to have. if you really cared about stopping terrorism, Saudi Arabia is the biggest exporter of terror.
How dare you.
Wahhabi terrorism.
How dare you? What are you saying?
It's unbelievable.
They're
man.
our allies, Abby
It's
Martin.
unbelievable. Well, yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty fucked.